Before we start the video, quick announcement. You can join for just $10 and gain access to my server, which includes notes, weekly lessons, and more. Your support helps fund thumbnails, editing, and other content. Jazakumullah khair. Now, let's get back to the video. Hello, Thomas.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. You Christian?
Yes, sir. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Yourself?
Not too bad. Just bored.
Yeah, so are you a Trinitarian?
Yes.
Okay, so do you believe that anyone before the Council of Nicaea believed in the Trinity?
I'm not too sure.
Right, so I can give you like a whole list of people that aren't Trinitarian before Nicaea that people think are Trinitarians and they think they're like early church fathers that held to the doctrine. But if you're not too familiar with that, then that's fine. We can go towards like just scripture alone, because my whole claim is that the doctrine of the Trinity isn't biblical, nor is it found within the early generations of Christianity. And because of this, most likely Jesus would have never preached it. You have a good case to don't believe in it if Jesus never taught it, right? So if we look into the Gospels, for example, do you think that Jesus, peace be upon him, would ever say that the Father is the only true God? As a Trinitarian, do you believe that he would ever say this?
I mean, I don't personally see why that would be problematic, but I'm not really too well versed on that. But you would be probably referring to like John, right? If I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
John 17:3. So when I say that you are the only guest in this room, can anyone else fulfill the conditions of being a guest in this room besides you?
If so, you're saying that if I'm the only guest, there can't be any other guest?
Yeah, so when Jesus says the Father is the only true God, can anyone else fulfill the conditions to be the true God besides the Father?
Well, it depends, like how he would be cashing out the term God. If it's like, I think the word is univocal. I think that's the word. Like it's he can only like the term God can only be predicated to the Father. I don't think that's how he meant it personally. Maybe you have an
Right,
argument.
right. So you believe that when he says the Father is the only true God, what does he mean? In what sense then? Because he's saying true God here. Like, do you not believe Jesus is the true God?
Yeah, I believe Jesus is also the true God. I
Okay,
just
so we
believe.
so 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 we know what he means by God here. He means true God, the title of true God. The only person that fulfills this is the Father. Is Jesus called the true God, or the Holy Spirit called the true God anywhere in the New Testament?
I'm not too sure. Maybe not. But I don't think
They
just.
aren't. They aren't. So if you have the Father being called true God, you have in other places the Father being called true God. But more than that, he's called the only true God. So you have justification now to say, yeah, he's an exclusion here. And you have no basis to say anyone else is the true God besides the Father. Why would you hold
So
to such a belief?
sorry to just like interrupt mid sentence, but you seem like you know a little bit. Like, what does it mean for it to be true God? Like, what's the distinguishing feature between like
Yeah,
true
so the
God and just God?
Yeah, so the true God is the eternal, self-sufficient deity that everything depends upon, and he doesn't depend on anything. He's the necessary being,
Well, that's
right?
just the definition of
And he's
God.
and he's the God of Abraham and Moses and Jesus and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
But I don't that like what's the symmetry breaker between that definition and just God? Like, what is
Yeah,
this
so so
word?
so God, yeah, so if we have someone that's termed God,
He
just
would still meet
with
that
that with the
necessary like.
predicative sense. No. So there's distinction between being called God and being called the only true God, or the
Yes,
God with a
yes,
definite
that's what I
article.
was asking. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So with the definite article, when you say the true God, this is the God that is eternal. That this is a God that doesn't. He's not limited or
Yeah. Sorry
confined
to interrupt. Sorry.
or he's not confined. Like if we're
If
using
you allow
biblical
me to
definitions,
interrupt, if
like First Kings chapter 8 verse 27, Solomon says God's too great to be contained in a temple. Right?
yeah. But just
You have
if you
these
allow me to
descriptions.
interrupt, if you allow
Yeah,
me
go
to
ahead.
interrupt, because
Go ahead.
you're saying the true God and like the distinguishing feature is that this true God is eternal and like you're giving your necessary the necessary properties of what could be considered God. But my objection to that would be any other thing that would be deemed God would still have these same essential
No.
properties as
No,
well. What
it's distinct
else?
for the true God. So so who's termed God and not true God that has
Let's
these
okay. How about
has these
can we
problems?
like just to make it easier? Could we compare like a god of one religion and a god of another religion?
No. I'm working within biblical. Like you're a Christian, I'm working within the Bible right now. The biblical
Yeah, but
framework
we're arguing
of
semantics.
the biblical framework of God and true God. True God is a God that can't be limited. It's a God that is Yahweh, and a God that we worship alone. We give the true to alone.
Yeah.
Then
That's
you have then
that's
you
the
have
contention.
God. That yes, you have gods, as in Psalm 82. The judges are called gods. You have God as in Jesus being termed my Lord and my God, or you have Paul terming Satan God, the God of this age, the God of this world. So I'm working within biblical terms when I define them for you.
Okay, I understand. I understand. Just like how there was a verse where God said that He would make Moses like a god, like Is
Oh,
that kind of what
it doesn't even say like a god. It says, "I'll make Moses a god to you." Like a god is an
Yeah, yeah,
insertion into the translation.
yeah. I'm not like quoting it verbatim. I'm just trying to like
No.
make a
You are quoting verbatim, but I'm telling you that translation is wrong. The NIV
yeah. I
translates it
know.
as like a god. In the Hebrew, it says, "I will make Moses an Elohim for you." A
Yeah,
Elohim.
that's irrelevant. That's irrelevant. Like you can be right. It's not what I'm like contending here. I'm just trying to give an example of like what you mean by true God would just be how people consider themselves God versus the actual God type of thing. Like Pharaoh would consider himself a god, but he doesn't fulfill the essential properties of the one true God, which would be
Yeah.
all know.
So the
Okay,
question
I
would be,
understand.
does Jesus fulfill these conditions of being the true God, all knowing, eternal, etc.?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay. So in Mark 13:32, when Jesus says, "No one knows the hour, neither the angels in heaven nor the Son, but only the Father," how does he still meet that condition?
Well, I've heard this before. I believe there's multiple like responses that could be considered like a sufficient response. You probably wouldn't agree. One would be that it's not for him to make known, which you probably heard before. And there is a verse in Acts where Paul talks about this. Another one would be
It's not an act, but yeah, I know what it's referring to. It's oiden.
yeah, like
The term oiden can be used either in a declarative sense, you're saying, or in terms of knowledge.
yeah, like I said, I'm not
I'm
like too well
yeah.
versed on it.
No, it's
And
okay. It's okay. So, like, the thing is, when a term can be used in two different ways, we need justification for. We need to give
yes,
preference
it's
for
context
one way over
dependent.
the other, context
Yeah.
dependent, and the earliest interpretations of those that held the religion and that were reading the text would give us the best idea of how they were interpreting it, and it's
I
gonna be the
don't think that's
most apparent. So,
I don't think sorry, I don't think
just
that plays a big
I'm just
part.
talking from historical. I'm just talking from a historical perspective.
Okay, okay.
The earliest perspectives of a verse will give us the best idea, the approximate truths to what would be the most appropriate idea. So, for example,
I don't agree with that.
some people might say that the Bible teaches that doesn't teach slavery. It doesn't teach that slavery is okay, but you don't have anything in the Bible that teaches that. Actually, you have verses that talk about when you have a slave, this is how you work with it, etc., etc. So the New Testament doesn't talk against it. Okay, so when you have early Christians all believing slavery is okay as long as you treat them in a certain way and whatever, then you have people in the 21st, 20th century, 19th century saying, actually, no, like we don't believe it's okay. Obviously, the early apostles, the early Christians, they will have the best idea. They know the Greek. They're closest to the time. So using the same logic, we can do the two. We can do context dependent, and we can do looking at the manuscripts, and we can look at the earliest interpretations of
Uh,
of those groups of people that were Christian. Okay.
yeah, so I would agree on specifically the apostles, but just generalizing early Christian interpretation, I don't see why that would have more of an authority for
Like
multiple reasons.
you don't believe the apostles taught their own students and their students taught their students? I'm talking about this.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, but
I'm talking about that chain, not generally every
oh,
Christian.
okay. All right, I
Yeah.
understand. Okay, I just thought
Okay.
you meant just like the average Christian
No.
interpretation. Okay, but
No.
yeah,
So
yeah, I definitely agree. Like figures like church fathers and whatnot,
of course,
definitely.
yeah, that's what I was referring to. Yeah. So if we could just go for the first part, because you mentioned context, and I agree, context is one of the most important parts that we have to look at. So the context there, if you look at Mark 13:32 and Matthew 24:36, Mark 13:32 gives one example, and then Matthew 24:36 gives three examples. One of them is the same thing as Mark, and every single example Jesus is highlighting within the actual analogy he gives. He's highlighting the fact that people in these parables don't know certain things, and the same way that you don't know and no one knows. So knowledge is actually what the context is. So would you like to pull it up, or do you want me to pull it up?
Would you the verse are you talking about?
Yeah. So Mark 13:32 and Matthew 24:36.
I mean, you can pull it up. I guess if people are watching the stream, it would be like beneficial for them. So it's up to you though.
Okay, no worries. Just give me a sec. So we'll do Mark first, and then I'll pull up Matthew. Okay. So are you familiar with the context that I just gave you now, though? How they're all talking about knowledge?
I'm not gonna lie, like not really, but I've heard it before from like different people, so like I don't really have a contention.
Yeah, no worries. So, because this is gonna be the response to it not being referring, for it not referring to actual knowledge, right? So here we go. So Mark 13. Okay. So he says, "But about the day or hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. Be on guard, be alert. You do not know when that time will come." So what does he mean by no here? Let's see. It's
Yeah, I
like
just
a man going away. He leaves his house and puts his servants in charge, each with their assigned task, and tells the one at the door to keep watch. Therefore, keep watch, because you do not know when the owner of the house will come back, whether in the evening, etc., etc. So he's talking about knowledge here. Agreed?
yeah, yeah, no issue. I can grant that. I don't think that would be an
Yep.
issue. Just for
Yep.
I think it would just signify a relation type of indication, I believe, because you can also see in
I don't
like
know what that means. Sorry, bro. I don't know what that means.
yeah, just like a relation between the father and the son, like the
I,
father.
I still don't understand how that, like, I don't understand how that's what he's saying.
I can give you like an exhaustive account, or I could just give you like an
But are we
example of.
are we shifting from it meaning declare? Are we shifting from that point?
No,
Now
no,
we're going into
I mentioned like I can grant it just so I can like see how you would like deal with a
no, no.
point.
I want to see if we can just put the declarative nonsense in the bin. So, like, do you think he's still talking about declaring when he says knowledge or oiden or no?
Yeah, like I said, I'm not well versed on it. You have an argument, and I don't really have a contention on like in my
Okay, so
mind. So I
okay.
was
So now we're going to put that response to the side. What's your
yeah.
response now? So
So like I was thinking, because there's some verses where Jesus mentioned the Father like won't judge anyone, but like all judgment will be like through the Son, and you would kind of argue how if he is the true God, he would have to be the one judging, because he would be like.
no. So that is so. You said,
No,
so
no,
can
no,
you give me the
no.
passage actually that you just quoted?
Not off the top of my head, but I can like open up ChatGPT and just ask for the verse if that's okay.
Yeah. So if you, with from the way that you just paraphrased it right now, Jesus is given judgment by the Father, right?
Given judgment or given the authority? Is
Yeah,
it
he's
the
given the authority to judge. Yeah.
I have to like double check the verse. If you can give me like 10 seconds.
No worries. But that's the way you paraphrased it right now, and I'm pretty sure that's what the verse says. The point is, the verse you just quoted proves he's not on the same level as the Father, because God isn't given authority to judge. He inherently has that authority. So what it shows is that Jesus is dependent on the Father and can't be the true God.
Well, he also says like whatever the Father does, he also does.
Yeah, so first he sees the Father do it, and then he does it, right? When you're talking about these verses, there's always a dependency, especially when you look at the earlier Gospels. But there's another problem here when you're assuming univocality between Mark, Matthew, and John. Like, these are different authors from different times, and they're giving different perspectives on Jesus. So you're gonna
So
have higher.
you're
Yeah, go
correct. I'm
ahead.
sorry to interrupt, but yeah, John 5:22 to 23, it says that, but he has given all judgment to the Son, that all may honor the Son just
Yeah,
as they honor the Father. So yeah, the
yeah.
part where the given was yes, correct.
Okay, God, the true God, I'm saying, the one that's co-equal, that's meant to be co-equal with each other in the Trinity, that true God has authority in and of himself. It's not an authority that's given from another. And
Let's stick to this
yeah,
verse though, because how
yeah.
would you like if you're exegeting this verse and it mentions that whoever like does not honor the Son as they honor the Father, like what is that like?
Yeah, so he's given the same honorific attributes after the Father bestows upon him that ability to be honored like him. So it's not an
So
honorific, it's not an honoring that he inherently has of himself. It's the
I don't
Father.
see. Sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt, but like I don't
yeah.
see how this would be like compatible with like a subordinationist theorist. Because
Why?
like yeah, so if the Father is like the only like true God in like the authoritative sense,
Yeah.
and this you're supposed to honor the Son just as you honor the authoritative person, that
Mhm.
would be a contradiction. Like the P and
No, I
not
would. No, I wouldn't. So are you
okay.
Catholic?
Yeah, yeah, but honestly, like I'm not really too well versed with
No problem.
Catholicism. Just
No,
kind of
no,
like
no, no, no
okay.
problem. So I'll give you an example within Catholicism because they make up the majority. So you actually have this dispute going on right now between Sam Shamoun and I forgot what this other guy's name is. I think Fanatic Thomist or something. They're having this dispute now on whether Jesus is the angel of the Lord in the Old Testament. What this Catholic is saying in response, he's a Thomist, in response to Sam, he's saying, listen, we can give Latruo to the angel of the Lord even if he's not Jesus. We do this all the time with icons.
And the
A cre-
crosses, yes.
yeah, and the crosses. So if you're giving Latruo to other than God and it's a created thing, there's no problem from a Christian paradigm because ultimately it's given to the Father and this is a medium. So that it is compatible with the subordinationist view because that's what subordinationists would just say with what you quoted.
Well, I mean, I think that argument is well, if you're venerating like an icon, it wouldn't be the same way you venerate a person of the Trinity. For like one reason in particular is that the way we venerate the cross or icons is just like through what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, like through representation, right? So
Yeah. Oh,
when
so
we
so so
venerate the
is
cross.
Jesus not the image of the true God. That it's literally like a biblical theme. He's the image of the true God, the image of the nameless that can't be seen. So through
Yeah, that
this
would just be
image,
like through the
yeah.
flesh, though. So we would through the flesh we would venerate the divine essence, and the divine essence
What do
could
you mean through the
also
flesh? You can't separate the flesh and that's the Nestorianism. Yeah, when
yeah.
you venerate Jesus, you venerate the person. You're not venerating the flesh. So yeah, but anyways, let's go
Wait,
back because
wait, who
we're
says that?
deviating a lot.
Wait. Okay, what you just
Yeah.
said now, you said when we venerate. Can you repeat what you said, sorry?
Yeah, so when you venerate Jesus as a Catholic or an apostolic Christian generally, you're venerating the person, you're not venerating the nature.
So there is we don't. So you're saying like Catholics don't believe in like some real distinction between the flesh and the spirit? I'm
No,
confused.
there is a distinction, but when you venerate Jesus, you're not venerating just the divine nature or just the flesh. You're venerating the person that possesses both, right? Let's bring it back.
All
Let's
right,
bring it back to Mark
but
13.
let's go back to that point later
What
on.
was your so within the Gospel of Mark itself? Because you were trying to bring up John, but I want to deal with Mark by itself, his own Christological framework. Whoever authored Mark, let's say Mark, he tells you in Mark 13:32 that Jesus does not know the hour. Using Mark, how do you square that circle? Where does he deify Jesus so you can justify that he does believe that he's the same God as the Father?
Well, I mean, we can go with, like in Mark 1, where I believe it was John the Baptist who paves
Yep.
the way for Yahweh. And then I'm pretty sure Mark cross references this with Isaiah, where
Yeah,
it's
it goes back
Yahweh.
to it goes back to the Old Testament, but agents of Yahweh can be called Yahweh. That's the whole point I told you before with the angel of the Lord business. Thomists literally believe the angel of the Lord is titled Yahweh, but he's an agent of Yahweh to the point where you can even worship the angel of the Lord, and it's not Jesus, it's not a person of the Trinity. They believe that's one. Two, you
So
have
that would
cases in the old.
sorry to
You have
interrupt.
cases
That's
in the
not
old.
a
Wait,
dogmatic. Sorry,
I'm
that's
not.
not a.
I know
I
I know
know,
it's
but
not
that's not a
dogmatic, but
dogmatic position.
I'm telling you it's a plausible. I'm telling you it's a plausible reading of the text. So it's not just me saying this. This is Catholics themselves saying you can title other than Yahweh Yahweh.
But I don't
So
have to. Yeah, I don't really have to entertain that
I know,
unless you
I know you
formulate it
don't
as
have
like
to,
an
but
argument.
I'm telling you one of
Okay.
multiple plausible
All
interpretations.
right. Sorry to
So
interrupt.
another no, so another plausible interpretation is to say you have Old Testament figures like Moses and Aaron being titled as Yahweh. So the Lord, he picked up his staff and put it above the Nile, and then it says Aaron's the one who picked up his staff and put it above the Nile. So we have here is agency. Now, when you have something explicit such as Mark 13:32 or Mark 10:18 or Mark 2 even where Jesus forgives sins, that's going against his divinity, by the way, or in his equality with the Father. We have these passages that are very, very clear that Jesus is saying he's not God. God alone is good. God alone knows the hour. And God alone, he bestows a forgiveness of sin and the ability of the forgiveness of sin to another. When you have these passages, it's clear. So we can't interpret something ambiguous like a prophecy from the Old Testament applying to Jesus. I could just easily just say that's agency because we have clearer indications that Jesus isn't Yahweh in the Gospel of Mark.
So okay, like I'm not trying to be rude. You kind of went on a little tangent. It was kind of all over the place. So your main point is, I think
No,
Dan Masellian kind
I
of
didn't
holds
go.
this.
No, I didn't go on a tangent. So I brought up Mark 10:18, Mark 2, and Mark 13:32. They're
You
all
brought
clear
up
indications.
Moses. You brought up Old Testament. Like you brought up a lot of stuff. Like I'm not trying to be like rude. I'm just
Yeah,
kind of asking.
how about you just refute these clear indications that I just cited? So Mark 10:18. How do you prove that Jesus is the same God that is the one good that's in Mark 10:18? How do you disprove that this is only for the Father alone?
Are we still on the hour thing?
No, this is part of the justification because you gave me Mark 1, and I'm telling you, no, like that's ambiguous. Look at the clear indications, not just Mark 13:32. Mark 10:18 is another clear indication. So, how do you square that
Yeah,
circle with
in
Mark
the
10:18?
indication of what exactly? Because like you
That
went to
Jesus
the
is
angel of the
subordinate.
Lord and the Thomas and like a bunch of like stuff. So I'm just like kind of I'm not tracking right now, to be honest. Like, could we
Okay,
like just stick to one
I'm giving
point?
you So let's stick on Mark 10:18. So I'm giving you justification right now that it's agency in Mark 1. So
And
in
your
Mark 10,
justification for that was like
Mark
the angel
10:18.
of the Lord. Yeah, I know, but your justification for your agency hypothesis was the angel of the Lord thing.
No, I gave you one possible reconciliation, and I'm justifying that possible reconciliation by showing you clear indications from the Gospel of Mark that Jesus is subordinate to the Father.
Yeah, I understand, but like I'm saying the justification is Mark, and the justification to what theory exactly? Agency,
The theory of
subordination.
agency, yeah, both of them.
Could you
So
like,
Mark, okay, so again,
one
I'll just say it
second?
clear.
It's not
I'll
your
say it
fault.
clearly
Wait,
for
one
you.
second. It's not your
Yeah,
fault. I generally am garbage at tracking. Can you like kind of
yeah,
syllogize it so like it's like easier
yeah,
to like,
no,
engage with?
no
Sorry.
worries, no worries. So you brought up Mark 1, and you were trying to say that Mark 1 proves Jesus is Yahweh because he's called Yahweh. Okay,
Well, you just asked me
and I
for.
told you,
Sorry. Okay, go on.
yeah, and I told you, sure, that's possible. But my justification on why I'm saying my interpretation is preferable on agency is because you have clear indications from Mark itself that he doesn't believe Jesus has these attributes of Yahweh.
And your justification for that was him not knowing the hour.
And then I brought up Mark 10:18 because
Is
yours,
Mark, yeah,
yeah.
Mark 10:18 is the hour thing, right?
No, it's Jesus saying that the Father is the only good.
Oh, are you talking about the why do you call me good thing?
Yeah, so let's pull that up because you're bringing up Jesus being called Yahweh, and I'm telling you, like, you have these set of passages that are so clear that he can't be Yahweh. So we're gonna have to interpret as agency. So again, let's bring up.
Well, when you say we're gonna have to, do you have like a defeater to like the any other like hypothesis?
Yeah, so these clear verses, there's no good explanation for them.
So like what would be like the defeater if I affirmed essence energy distinction and then I said that Jesus or the second person of the Trinity was actually the angel of the Lord? Like what would be the defeater to that?
No, that's irrelevant to what I'm saying right now. Like what I'm saying,
Well, you
right
said
now,
that you
what
said
I'm saying
that
right now, Jesus is an angel. It's not dependent on the angel of the Lord thing.
no, yeah, no, but you're
I gave you
saying
two possible occurrences: the
yeah.
angel of the
One
Lord
second,
thing,
one second.
and you have other agents like Aaron being called Yahweh.
Yeah, you mentioned that, but like your whole argument is like this is the only thing because of the impossibility of the contrary. That's like your whole point. So like
The whole
my,
point is that there's clear verses that Jesus is subordinate. So let's talk about that.
but you're like you're
So Mark
presupposing
10:18
that
when
it's clear.
I'm not presupposing because I'm gonna allow you to explain after I make my case.
Okay.
Mark 10:18, you have a man approaching Jesus, and he says, "Good teacher," he asks, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" Jesus replies, "Why do you call me good? No one is good except God alone." So my point I'm making here is that
Yeah, because yeah,
the man's
so
calling
I can
Jesus.
explain that because
Wait,
that
but
person
you,
didn't.
you can't explain until I make my,
Yeah,
like,
but
what are you gonna
just
explain?
can you just please be like don't take long because like I'm so bad at tracking and this is not your fault. Like I'm gonna forget
Okay,
most of it.
no, it's okay. So I'm gonna
Okay.
make three simple points. One, the man stops calling Jesus good here. So that's the first point. He doesn't call him good teacher anymore. He calls him teacher now. The second point I'm gonna say is in Matthew 19:17, the scribes of Matthew changed Jesus' question. So now you can't interpret as Jesus saying, "Why do you call me good?" as in he's denying his divinity. They changed the question to, "Why do you ask me about what is good?" So there's 2 points there. Do you
Okay.
track those?
So yeah. So
Okay, I'm gonna give you the third point now.
oh yeah,
So you track
right.
those two.
Sorry,
Just
sorry.
so, yeah. So the third one and the final one. This is the biggest defeater. The early church fathers, when they cite this, they cite it as no one's good but the Father alone. So you have Justin Martyr, Irenaeus, Hippolytus, Clement of Alexandria. All these early church fathers, they cite it as no one's good but the Father. So when people try to do mental gymnastics and say, no, he's not saying Father here. He's referring to himself or he's referring to the Trinity. There you go.
Okay,
That's
just like save that that oil for like after. So for P1, your argument, you're saying that he denied being good. But as far what I could remember in this verse, the man didn't actually believe Jesus was God, and Jesus usually like responds with like some type of ambiguous response just to get somebody thinking, right? So I believe this is the same man that Jesus told like to sell all his stuff and follow him, but he didn't. So when the guy called him good teacher, God did, or Jesus knew that he didn't believe he was God. So that's why he replied with, "Why you call me good? Only God was good." That would be one response. If we can, like, if you want, you can just tackle that first.
Yeah,
And
yeah, that's just a possible explanation, not a probable one. I gave you a probable case why your one's just like you're assuming Jesus is God, then you read that into the text and try to get a possible interpretation. I'm not doing that. I gave you a
well, you're
justification
arguing
where
subordination.
yeah.
You're agreeing that Jesus is God, but in a lesser. I don't see how that's a
Yeah,
presuppose.
so don't equivocate when I say God, I mean obviously the Trinitarian concept of God where he has to be co-equal, co-eternal.
Yeah, but you
So
said he's
so what I'm saying,
subordinate to the Father, so you're arguing like
yeah.
what's his name, Arian
I'm argu-
Arianism.
yeah, I'm arguing against the Trinity, bro.
Yeah, but
That's evident.
you're taking an Arianistic approach. So
Yeah, it's evident.
so
It's
if you're
evident.
gonna yeah, so you
When I say God,
believe.
what do you think I mean when I say God?
Well,
I'm
you
talking
gave me the
when I want to
distinction.
disprove it, when I want to disprove Jesus being God, I'm talking about him being co-equal, co-eternal.
Yeah, but like right now, where I gave my justification as to why, because you said like how do you know Jesus is God because he didn't know what the person was thinking, something like that. You're presupposing that he's God.
Yeah, so
So
when Jesus says except God alone, who's God?
yeah, I would just it would just be referred to the
The
to
essence. Okay,
divine essence.
is the essence the Father?
Is the essence the Father? I don't think so.
Okay, so why do you? So again, like you didn't respond to the stuff I said before. So
Yeah, I
when
did, and then you said it wasn't a
so
plausible.
You have Justin Martyr, Clement of Alexandria, Irenaeus. They all
See,
cite this as no one's good but the Father alone.
yeah, well, that would just like I don't really agree with the quote mining unless like we
It's
undergo
not quote mine.
and a prop. No,
Have you read these guys? I've read
no,
them.
I haven't.
Okay.
That's why I told you many times. Like you
So why are you
probably know
assuming that
more
I'm
than me.
quote mining?
No, because you keep like mentioning church fathers as if like they're fallible or infallible. Actually,
No, it doesn't matter if they're fallible. I don't need them to be infallible for me to make my point that it
yeah,
was an
like I
early
agree. It
it
would
was an
strengthen.
early it was
Yes,
an
it would
early
strengthen your
consensus.
position. Yes, it
Yeah,
would strengthen your position
yeah,
if more people agree. I have no issue with
yeah,
that. But I'm
yeah.
just saying like that. Like quoting them wouldn't be like a defeater
So
for my
so the, so so
hypothesis.
the point is your explanation is merely possible, while my one is probable because I have the early church as I just listed right now. They're all saying the Father. You have the tell me this why in the Gospel of Matthew does the scribes of Matthew change the question?
That's a red herring, but I mean that wouldn't prove any. I could just say the same thing that,
How's that a red
uh,
herring?
yeah, because it has nothing to do with like the theological aspect of the question.
It does because
Yes, you're going from an
when you have a okay
internal. We're doing an
okay
internal critique, and now it's
do you agree
external.
that when we say that no one is good except God alone, and then you have a bunch of people saying that that's an ontological
I don't.
subordinationist
I
view,
don't think. Well, I could just affirm the monarchical view. But what
okay
if like I just say the monarchical view is true?
so again listen, bro, like this shows me that you're not genuine because every time I refute your position, you just say, oh, but what about this view? What about this view? What
You
about that view?
agreed. You agreed. It's not a refutation. You just said yeah, it's a plausible view, but mine is more plausible. That's not a refutation.
No, I didn't say
But
that. I said your one is possible, my one is
so
probable. Just
how is
because
that a
your
refutation?
it is a refutation. Like if I say it's
No, it's
possible, when
not, dude.
if I say it's possible, my man, you don't understand this. Like if I say that I'm gonna hit a ball with a bat, possible I'm using an animal. Is that justified to me? Assume that I'm using an animal? Obviously not. So when you
That is
say
not
so when you
analogous.
say yes,
What's
it
the
is because
defeater to the animal thing then?
your
What's the
there's
defeater
no
to the animal
it's
thing? Just so.
possible, but it's just highly
Okay, so there
implausible.
is okay, so there's no defeater, right?
Oh my god.
Okay, it's not plausible. Look, I agree. I agree with you.
Does everything need to be a defeater in a deductive sense?
For it to be deemed a refutation, yes, of course. This is basic
No, it doesn't.
epistemology.
What are
This
you
is
talking
basic
about?
epistemology. What are
Okay,
you talking about?
is it possible Jesus isn't the true God in John 17:3?
No.
Okay, why?
Yeah, because if I'm taking religious dogma at hand, it would be
No, no,
impossible.
no, no. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about me. If I was to read that text, is it possible for me to read that as Jesus not
Of
being
course
God?
it is. Yeah, of
Okay, so it's
100%.
justified for me to believe that? Is it justified?
No, it's not justified.
No,
No.
okay, thank you. So you just proved to me that improbable things aren't justified.